Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Fan Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
First world, come in and take a seat. Pay us no attention, it's all conspiracy. We have satire and parody, some funny, some perverse. If none of it's offensive to you, you'd be the first.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another rendition of Comic Pulp. And finally, we got the internet back, so we are doing this live today. Fantastic.
So after your Transformer Blue?
Yeah, that's crazy. So I gotta tell you guys what happened. So originally, because down in Southern California where I live, we thought it was the winds that knocked the Transformer out and blew it up. And they took away all of our power. No, what ended up happening is they haven't updated our transformers in our farmland area for over than 25 years. And so basically the transformers we had out here finally blew because of all the data being pushed through, all the immense power being pushed through to transfer that data. Just the transformers, there was too much energy going into them and they weren't updated. And yeah, so now we're back from the Stone Ages. Hi, folks. Nice to see you. And not being able to do the show is able to create more content for the show for future episodes. And one of the great things that came out, I was in my hiatus, is I finally got to read some more comics, got to check out some more stuff that's coming in from comic books. And one of the coolest things that I like, because it was part of my childhood, was the 90s X-Men. And to celebrate the 90s X-Men, Hasbro has released these kinds of figures based off of them. And I am not taking it out of the package because I'm a collector. I like keeping them nice. Anywho, and yeah, so the 90s X-Men are coming back on Disney+. They're even bringing back the original voice characters of the...
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and even the original score artists. So I'm super excited because, as a fan of the show, the first two seasons, amazing. But after season 3, when Fox kept cutting the budget, the animation just started getting crappy because they used a different studio, and it just kind of wore out. But to this day, I think the greatest story ever told in that show is probably the backstory of Mr. Sinister and how they got away with it, because they were literally showing Jack the Ripper on that TV show. Is beyond me how they got away with it. I mean, they were showing corpses, they were showing dead people in streets, and so there's some people I really want to talk to from those shows, because they when we were kids, man, they got away with a lot of crap that you just can't do today.
Oh, by the way, guys, just to let you know, I found this. I had to pull it. I did the quick little internet. Now it's saving as WebBP, which fucking sucks. So it's like, oh, okay, I have to convert it. This is bullshit. Anyway, so.
Oh, that's funny.
But I was looking it up. They better put more Psylocke in there, because I think she's an underrated character.
Oh,
I mean,
100%.
Yeah, and it's just stupid. It's just like, oh, we're not going to put Psylocke. It's like, fucking put Psylocke in there. She's actually a good character. She has a pretty good lineup on the Marvel comic side. Fucking put her in there. They always make her shitty, too. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, why? I mean, like, I think if Marvel were to do better in movies, I think really they should do Psylocke because it's like a white girl turned Asian.
Oh, yeah, there was a stand-up
That worked the
comedian
last
that,
time.
yeah. There was a stand-up comedian that put it out. He's like, yeah, the X-Men were great. They were all inclusively accepting, and they even, like, predicted that Scarlett Johansson was going to become an Asian girl in a few movies. Like, and I was just like, dude, that's fucked up.
I mean, as I said, I'm not like that angry about it because the director did okay her. I think he was just happy to have Scarlett Johansson be like one of the headliners on the set. That really would draw it in. From what I understand, the movie Ghost in the Shell kind of failed for other reasons, but it wasn't necessarily that casting. It was actually because they took all of the, I think, Standalone Complex, the original Ghost in the Shell, and not the Puppet Master, it was the 3 storylines, and they took all the good parts out of the storylines and just put the bland parts together.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times where I've wondered why they should animate Ghost in the Shell, not because I think the manga sucks, but it's very verbose. So when they get into really meta shit, it's like they're sitting around talking, and I'm like going, okay, why did we animate this? Can we put a visual vignette? But I guess they want to save money. I mean, there's other things too, like the Major is really cool because like she and her friend Batu can like actually thought transmit, like because they're both cybernetic, but they can say a completely different conversation. They did that in Standalone Complex. Like you had a bunch of AI droids that were like, they became self-aware. So they were trying to read lips. But the thing is they knew about it. So they just went ahead and they just had a completely different conversation in their head while their bodies were just talking something else, giving out misinformation. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing. But yeah, so it's like, they got to have Psylocke. I rewatched it again. So apparently I saw a preview from 2022. Now, I've worked San Diego Comic-Con as in Horror Studios. You're not going to have time to go to panels. Trust me. San Diego Comic-Con's a fucking monster. Philip got in there and he's like, holy shit,
Yeah, it was way more than I remember, because you guys got to remember when I broke into comics, that was like 2015. I didn't get into San Diego Comic-Con around that time because I was so new. But then now when I finally got in there, I was just like, bruh.
Well, it's like they showed the preview and they said Magneto would be the leader of the team, and they're going like, oh well, if he's not killing humans. I said this might be the alternative storyline that when Charles dies, so he actually marries. It's the one where he marries Rogue, and they have a child named Charles. It could be that timeline. So I think that's that timeline right there. So, but yeah, because they have all the other characters, but I don't know if they're going to switch it about, where they're going to have Cyclops be evil, or it's just they're just going to do an alternate timeline, but they're just not going to have Charles Xavier in it.
Well, I'm interested in what's going on, because regardless, like for X-Men fans, hardcore X-Men fans know, especially when it was Claremont's work. I mean, the team changed drastically all the time, and so a lot of fans of the 90s, the reason why, and I think the reason why the team of Cyclops and Storm and Wolverine and Rogue made it to movies and the other teams didn't was because of how popular the cartoon got. And then because the cartoon got so popular, they made them the main team in the continuity at the time, and that's what they were doing with the original movies. And they've kind of strayed away from that in recent movies, which I do enjoy. So I'm kind of curious, like you pointed out, like which team are they going to be using? Because ultimately, and the other thing too, like, are they, which versions of the character? Because like for the most part, everyone agrees Cyclops is a huge dick. He's always been a dick.
Dude, she's like a fucking Chad.
Yeah. Like he's just he's a by the book guy until it no longer serves him, and then he does something messed up, and then he goes back to being by the book guy and condemning people. Like he's very like he's like you said, he's very much a Chad, which is very, very whatever. And then but what I'm more interested in is, are they finally going to do the Rogue and Gambit thing? Because a lot of X-Men fans were pissed with the movies. You know what I mean? Because like it was her and Iceman, and that never happened. You know, they took that love story between her and Gambit and gave it to those two, and it's like no.
Well, I think they kind of wanted to do the ice on the mouth thing. Why do you think the way to legitimize an IP is make it live action animation is the best way to present these stories? Yes and no. I mean, I've seen good comic book adaptations both and shitty ones both. I think the thing is that I think they just kind of bent the storyline a little. Like the first movie, everybody's like, oh my God, we expect it to be kind of shitty. Now it's good. And then now it's kind of like, and then they kind of fucked that up and lost direction in that way. I mean, also the thing is that X-Men was owned by Sony, and the other one was owned by, I think
no, X-Men was owned by Fox, and then
Fox.
Yeah,
yeah,
and then
so
Spider-Man was Sony. Yeah,
so they couldn't really do certain things. That's why they had that weird thing with Spider-Man. So they kind of had to merge all the three storylines into Homecoming. So it was weird, but I mean, it was good that they kind of did it that way. So it wasn't like, so awkward, and it explained things and it was sort of canon. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm looking at like some of the trailer. I am not going to go and play it due to copyright issues here because I don't want us to get tagged, but they have, I don't know. Are these the new character designs, or are these the old ones? I can't tell because the quality of the video.
Oh no. Some of them are new. So they've released some of the new character designs that pay homage to it. And the thing about the X-Men that breaks my heart is we got the 90s X-Men costumes finally in movie form. But what pisses me off is they're trapped in a crappy movie. Because that X-Men Phoenix was not that great. It was so boring. I was just
was
like,
it the one with the woman that's played Sansa Stark, or was it another one?
Yeah, the one. Yeah, it was.
Oh, I think it was Dark Phoenix, wasn't it? It was like Dark Phoenix. I didn't like how they did that because they were like, oh, there's a part of Jean Grey that's really bad. I'm like, no, the Dark Phoenix is a universal entity. Jesus Christ, guys! Like I'm. Even sound like I read the whole fucking thing, and I haven't. I mean, I know bigger X-Men nerds about that, but it's like no, the X-Men, the Phoenix, I forgot the consciousness. I forgot what they called it, but the Phoenix, the Phoenix deity or whatever, the Phoenix entity was actually an entity that was an all-knowing and all-powerful entity and wanted to know to be human. So as Jean Grey was trying to sacrifice herself, it's like, hey, I'll strike you a deal. I want to know what it's like to be human, but I know you're going to die. So you cannot die, and I can inhabit your body for X amount of time. Doesn't matter. Okay, so she agreed to it. So she was in a cocoon, and then she came out of the river. That's why I was like going, when they tried to do that in the X-Men with, I think Franke Janssen, which was actually a decent Jean Grey, and then, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I was like, okay, and then she came out of the water, and I know they were trying to do that, but then she ended up killing Scott Summers. No, I don't care if I gave away a fucking spoiler. It's an old ass movie. Who cares? But
it's like 25 years old at this point.
But yeah, so I mean, when I was looking at that shit, I was like going, no. Like I was just shaking my head. But it looks like some of the character designs, I don't want to say have improved. What I'm saying is the character designs have been better rendered animatively. Like I know some people that have worked on this, and I don't blame them for the bad job. It's more the shitty animation they were forced to do, like that were forced to
so during a few interviews with some of the creators, I found out that they went from having a decent budget that was pretty tight for a kids show at the time, and they were able to work with certain studios in Japan and Canada, and then all of a sudden the subsequent, those studios had to change because the budget got slashed so bad. And that's why, and they just had to deal with what they had to deal with. In fact, the one guy, his name was Mike Oliver, was a cleanup artist on the TV show for years. And the moment they slashed the budget, he was very upset because of the fact that when they were working on it, they would get notes for the writers that said, don't do so many running, scenes, because it was very difficult to show them running, even though, so like in the later subsequent things that they would literally transition when a character was about to get chased. You know what I mean? Instead of showing them running, which was insane because they didn't have enough money to. And when he told me that, I was like, dang. Talk about gutting your production value. You can't even show a character running on screen. That sucks, you know. And it was Mike was just very open about it. I would like to talk to more of the voice actors and get their perspective though, because the voice actors, from what I got to see in interviews on YouTube, they got some pretty funny stories.
Right.
Like so.
You know what also is kind of interesting? I'm like looking at some video games and remakes, speaking of, and I know this probably comics and video games. Like sometimes I go into the video game realm, and I guess what was in my squirrel head was like, I've been looking at the Dead Space remake and I'm like, why? The graphics are still fucking good. They're still pretty much up to date. Although I do like the concept that makes it creepier of Dead Space is where you have to cut off all their limbs. And how they introduce it, like you're running in and like all this fucking shit is going down. You're Isaac. I forget, it's Isaac something. You're this engineer and you're running. You're like, holy fuck. And then all of a sudden you see all these fucking dead bodies. Like it looks like the Thing. And then it says, cut off all their limbs and blood. And you're like, well, if you aren't paying attention, you're going to be fucked. Because like in every game, the condition you shoot in center mass or the head, or shoot it enough times. Whereas in this game, no, target the extremities. So it's like, that's how you kill those fucking. I don't know why they never explained the lore of the. I forgot what those fucking things are. It's kind of funny. One guy called like one of the things they're kind of like face huggers, but they look like vagina bats. That's what one of them said. But literally, they'll go up to a dead body and then they'll just like go on and just implant whatever and turn them into a necromorph. That's it. So no, I mean it's just actually a cool series of game. Yeah, it's a good take on Alien. It's like zombies and Alien, but it's also the Thing. I think Dead Space is a really good example, and it's kind of funny is they kind of poke at Scientology too, because they talk about the mark and the Thing and space aliens.
Well, what's interesting to me is, so thanks to James Cameron, where he took Alien, which was originally a claustrophobic horror, and made it an action movie with aliens, and then did Terminator, like. If thanks to that guy, pop culture in comic books and video games have paid homage to his ideas. I mean, Rob Liefeld even straight up admitted that when he created Cable, he ripped off James Cameron 100%.
And, well, that's like Terminator, right? That would be like Terminator. That's the closest thing. Yeah,
Terminator, exactly. And a lot of the aliens in the X-Men TV show, when they were fighting, the one that would steal your life force, I guess, looked a lot like xenomorphs, in the same way with Wildcats. And the Wildcats, when they were fighting the aliens, a lot of them looked like xenomorphs from, aliens. So it's interesting how much of that stuff has, percolated into pop culture over time. And it's just a fascinating thing. And when I didn't get to play Dead Space that often, but from what I got to see, like it was pretty cool. I got to read the Dead Space comic book based off the game, and I'm going to tell you something, man. Some scenes in that comic, I could see why people were at the time were scared of playing that game, because just some of the art was just so beautiful in that thing, and some of the creatures look terrifying, and the idea of things reanimating a corpse so that it can kill you and take over your body, like, yeah, that's kind of cool, actually.
Yo, aggressively relaxing. Haven't seen you in a while. How's it going, man? He's one of my fans. It's like, yeah, the Brood are just aliens. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that with Dead Space, what's creepy about it is that you kind of have to do shit to corpses in that game like you don't normally do. Like, I mean, some people for shits and giggles, like in a fucking game, will kick them over or whatever, they're ragdoll and everything. But like literally there's this one scene you walk in and it's just littered with dead bodies and you have to stomp on them all, because the thing is that if you, and I know, and normally that would be kind of fun, but it kind of fucks with you a bit because these people still look human. These are just people. And the reason being is that if you don't, there's this one thing that activates where all the vagina bats will come out and they'll just impregnate. They move fast too. They'll impregnate all the corpses, and then you'll have to deal with a much tougher, meaner set of necromorphs that you have to slice apart. So it's like, you know, while they're inanimate, you just fucking smash apart the body so they don't have anything to animate, and it's pretty fucked up. I mean, but that game fucks with your head because you're this guy trying to look for your girlfriend on this ship, and it's just all this shit happens and betrayal. And I mean, that's kind of generally written into any sci-fi horror. But in this one, it was just gnarly as hell. It just like just how shit goes down so quickly the moment they come down, and then they go into a thing. That's the thing what I like about a lot of if there has to be any good horror, there has to be a lull of normality, and then all of a sudden, boom, shit blows up in your face. I think that was the effect of horror. It's like The Thing. It's like
right.
like, oh, you're okay. We kind of dealt. Oh shit, you know, just out of nowhere. You know.
Right. And it's you know, one of the things too that people forget in like, you know, in great sci-fi writing in horror, especially when you're doing sci-fi within horror, is taking familiar tropes but making them feel brand new. And, you know, like Dead Space did that very well. Another you know, book that did that well too, in my opinion, was possibly Evil Dead versus Freddy versus Ash. Like, you know, all the tropes of Freddy Krueger, you knew all the tropes of Jason, you knew all the tropes of the Evil Dead, but now they're in each other's realms. And that comic book, as it was licensed by all franchises, admitted that Freddy Krueger and Jason were Deadites. So technically, if you're ever going to like binge watch any of those films or binge read any of those comics, they're all Deadites. You know what I mean? And Ash is probably the only person that was able to, you know, stop him. But I still enjoy it because of the fact that like how vastly different that book was. Even though you saw the turn coming, you didn't know how they were going to, you know, pull it off. My favorite scene is when in that comic series is when, you know, they find out Jason is a Deadite and that his mom used, you know, the necromancer to bring back her son. And then a friend of mine goes, "Oh, you didn't know?" You know, and I forget which Jason movie it was, but we ended up watching it and he paused it and you saw the Evil Dead book in the background of Jason's cave. So they were planting that seed long before that comic book came out. Well, they just finally openly confirmed it.
Like with Predator 2, they kind of did that with AVP, Alien versus Predator. By the way, the guys, if you ever go back in history, go back and read Alien versus Predator comics. Don't watch the fucking movies. They suck ass. Just because, I mean, look, I'm not trying to like make it into high art, but they could have made it way fucking better than what they ever did. Like they said, well, we set it up. It was this thing. And then it looks like it's like such a horrible piece of shit. And I'm like, fuck you guys. Like you took something and you like cock raped it into something else. And like, it's just dumb. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I mean, let's be honest. You know, Dark Horse came out with a great concept when they had the licenses for Alien and Predator, and to make it to where like both of those were fighting, and our existence as a species was trying to survive their hunting game. That was a great story. Like they had multiple stories that they could have ran with it, and the movies just like took bits and pieces and just dumped out the rest, you know. And it was just like, which was kind of heartbreaking to be honest, you know, like because when you watch the movies, like 4 of the characters weren't even in the comics at all. They were just made for the movie. And you know what I mean? And they did certain things that the main character did in the comics that made sense. Some of it was just like, you know, but yeah, what can I say? I'm always gonna gripe about certain aspects of comic book films and such. But some of it, you know, well, some of it's good though. some changes are good. Like I like it when Robert Kirkman was the head writer on The Walking Dead, because of the fact that it was essentially him changing it enough to where fans like me wouldn't ruin it for new fans like you that just wanted to watch a zombie TV show. And I would, I read the comic and I wasn't going to spoil it for you because I was so excited. Oh, wait until this happens. Wait until that happens. And, he changed it enough to where we didn't know what they were doing,
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like him and Rick and Michonne, actually, them pairing up kind of made sense too, in a way. Well,
Yeah.
Michonne is, like, in the comic, you realize what a fucked up bitch she is. She's like psychologically just.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, she's not a terrible person, but she's just like that.
Yeah. Oh, dude, in the comics, she was way more unhinged. There was a scene in the comics that they didn't even do in the, a couple of scenes with her, actually. But the one where the guy, like, tortured her and beat her up, in the TV show, she just grabs her sword and slashes the dude. But when you read the comic, she knocks him out, and she slowly tortures him to death, like pulling his teeth out, cutting his face up. Like, it wasn't a quick death like it was in the TV show. She took her time.
Hey, I do not know you, Facebook user, but hello. Please identify yourself. Unfortunately, with StreamYard, it does this thing where it doesn't show it if you don't log in a certain way. It's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
So, hello, Facebook user. Sorry if we do not know your name. But yeah. So it's just kind of funny, as I said. I agree with you. It's like Michonne, like where she deals with the governor. I didn't see the part where she dealt with the governor. She had to, but the governor actually, like, because he beats and rapes her. It implies in the comic that he rapes her, basically. So after him doing that to her, she basically tortures him by cutting off his hand, because that's what he did to Rick. He cut off his hand. So he's like, fuck you. He gouges his eye out with a spoon. She cuts his dick off too. So it's like, she fucks him up, and it's like, that's understandable. He's a piece of shit, I mean, you can see how he becomes a piece of shit because his daughter becomes a zombie, and I guess that would fuck anyone up. But at the same time, it's like that like, now he's an asshole, go kill him, But that comic is really hard to start continuing for long periods of time, because you start getting really depressed to how people are to each other after a while, and then you get attached to characters and they die. But I mean, that's in continuity. Like, there's this one where Carl almost gets raped by a bunch of dudes, and only his father doesn't have his hand anymore. So literally, he rips the guy's like carotid artery out like that, like with his teeth. And like Abraham tries to save him. I mean, he does manage to, but like literally, Carl, I think, has to shoot the guy, so he kills his first person. That's not a walker, and that kind of messes with him psychologically too. Let me see. Who's this?
Speaking as a dumb redneck.
Georgia, that whole franchise is insulting. A zombie outbreak would last hours, and the big issue would be the lawsuits around non-zombie murders, in my opinion. Actually, they had one called Fear of the Walking Dead that was supposed to be in LA, and I guess Patient Zero was supposed to be a crackhead, and there were some people we didn't like. I said, oh, is that Patient Zero? Because we're assholes.
Yeah. So what's interesting about Fear of the Walking Dead, they actually explore that. So the zombie outbreak, according to the Fear of the Walking Dead in the series that led into it, the government knew it was happening. They were just trying to keep a lid on it until it could no longer be contained. And so when people were looking at it, you know what I mean? Like, they were reporting it, and they were just burying it until it happened. And in actual, I don't know if they get into it, but they hint at some people getting arrested for killing zombies because they thought they were killing actual human beings, so on and so forth. So it's there's a lot of some stuff that's coming out with The Walking Dead that I think they're finally fixing, because there's so much to do within The Walking Dead, so many laws, so many cultures that would be affected, especially being in a multicultural country like we are. I mean, I find it interesting. Like, the best way I tell people with when reading The Walking Dead or watching The Walking Dead, understand the zombie outbreak is just a backdrop. what it is how do we cope with humanity falling, and it's the social interactions at that point. That's what it's mainly about. And yeah, I'll be honest. The case study of tribalism in that series from Robert Kirkman, really, you're like, yeah, people can be really fucked up, man. They can be messed up to each other, 100%.
I was just laughing because for some reason I thought of I don't know if you guys remember Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, back in the day. Like, I remember him because I was in California, in NorCal, when I was a kid in Hayward. So he was in the Bay. This was around the time he was in the Bay Area. I know he was like down in LA, and they moved up to the Bay Area, killed a few people, and went back down. And it was kind of funny because, like, I was talking to my friend David. Now, David is Mexican American, but he was saying, like, oh yeah, those guys, like, because what happened, if you guys don't know about Richard Ramirez, how he got caught, I think he tried to do the same thing because he was a rapist and murderer. You know, he also drew pentagrams. He was like really a fucked up piece of shit, which was interesting.
Yeah.
So he tried, I think, robbing another lady, an old lady in the neighborhood, and it was a Chicano neighborhood, and all the vatos and everything and all the gangbangers like fucking went out and started beating his ass. And like and that's why the cops came out, because they were about to kill him, but then that's how they caught him and incarcerated him for good. Yeah. And it was kind of funny. We were kind of laughing about that. And like, I think we made jokes about shit like that because I think David mentioned like, oh yeah, that shit happened in the neighborhood, you know, when the zombie apocalypse would happen, like that shit would be like, oh my God, like how that would be handled. We're kind of laughing about it. So, but yeah.
Well, you know, and again, like being any comic book writer, comic book artist, comic book creator in general, when you are dealing with trying to set up the reasons why, you know, your apocalyptic or cyberpunk world exists the way it exists, like there's just going to be aspects of life that you're just not going to get right? Like, you know, because if you're just a creative person, you're just focusing on the story, and sometimes the details on how you got to a certain point aren't as important as the impact. And so, like, you know, because like even in The Walking Dead, the first few books, like when they didn't know how it happened, or you know, they were still trying to figure it out, and then all of a sudden they just leave it alone. Like, let's not figure it out. Let's just try to rebuild society. You know, a lot of people were mad about that. They're like, no, why would the zombie things? But then if you look at it, if it really did happen, a lot of people would give up on trying to figure out why it happened versus trying, okay, it already exists now. How do we survive it? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
because in the comic, I think, like in the comic, it was actually a virus that everybody has. So everybody's going to be a walker anyway, whether they become turned into one or not.
Yeah.
Like just when you die, you know. So it made me think of like funerary rites that had to evolve as a result of that. Because like for a while we had in this country, and I know people were like, what? But you know, back in the day, they had tuberculosis. It was a wasting disease. And somewhere in some rural parts in the country, like in the 19th century, they actually buried people all fucked up due to that because they thought they would be vampires.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, like there was this one rural thing in the country. I think it was in New York. They unearthed a grave, and they had a guy whose brother was buried normally, but he wasn't. He was like literally like cut up and shit. And there are times in like some parts of Europe where they would actually bury you with a scythe on your neck. So if you decided to resurrect, it'll cut your head off. So people really believed in that shit, you know. So it's like, I think Fear of the Walking Dead and Fear of the Walking Dead kind of encapsulates that. So it made me kind of think of funerary rites, like in that universe, what it would be. Would it be like they would bury you and make sure there was a blade on top, so when you rose up, it just cuts your head off and you're done? Or would they just incinerate your body, you know, or would it be mass cremation? So it's like that kind of stuff, because funerary rites kind of evolve out of different things. Like they had the mummies. I'm trying to remember what Plains natives it was. I think it was the Hopi. They were the ones covered in clay, but they had the bones underneath. Yeah. So it was like they were saying, like, when you look at that, and again, I don't know what's the newest data on it, but they either think that those mummies existed at that time because they had died and there was a big famine, so cannibalism became a thing. So that's why they kind of, but they wanted to give them a respectful burial because like this was people that they knew probably or were related to. But it's like, since they're dead, you know, we might as well eat them. So they just went ahead and just defleshed them, because the bones show evidence of that. But they wanted to be respectful, so they covered them with clay, or I think clay, and then they had them as mummies. So
Yeah,
it's
red dirt
interesting.
clay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. So I don't know what conclusion they derived from that, if it was a result of survival cannibalism or it was just part of the funerary rites at the time. But it's interesting how things develop that way, like funerary rites.
Well, that's the reason why when it comes to comic books, I really, 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 really love writers like Mike Mignola, who will study different cultures, and before he does a horror script or a horror drawing, he really delves into the culture aspect. You know what I mean? Because like the way our stories present themselves is one culture will create this story, and then that story will get migrated to another culture. Certain aspects will change just enough to make it fit within that culture. Like that's the reason, like the woman in white here in America, we call it the woman in white, and the story somewhat changes. But like down in Mexico, was it La Llorona? I'm pretty much butchering that one, horror. But in Mexico, it's a woman crying, and she's going to steal your kids. In America, it's a woman crying, and she's going to kill unfaithful husbands. So like. But it's still a woman in a dress, in a wedding dress, white wedding dress, crying, trying to get justice for something. And so like when we talk about these things like in horror, what excites me about guys like Mike Mignola is like they study all of that, and they really explore, like, as a human being, how would we react? How should we react? Are we the villains of this story, or are we, really being innocent? And Mike Mignola is really good at messing you up with that, especially with his hero Hellboy, because Hellboy's not supposed to be the hero; he's supposed to be a villain, but then he was raised to be a hero, And I always liked that about Mike.
Oh, it was funny. Like at the time, I was dating a guy who liked pancakes. This was a long time ago, and he basically it's like this, how they turned him to the side of good when he was little, is that they made him pancakes and he ate them. He said, "Oh, these are good." And Hell's like, "Oh, fuck, we lost." I actually personally don't like pancakes. They're too heavy for me. I like waffles, actually. I don't know. It's weird because it's like I like fried foods, but if it's done well, now people say, well, it's like fucking heavy. It's like if you do it right, it actually is lighter. Like if you know how to fry food right. If you don't fry it right, it's gross. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true, because it's so funny when it comes to food. When I went to Japan a few years ago to promote some of my artwork, and then when I was stationed in Japan for like 6 months, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna come back thin and all this because they eat super healthy over there, blah blah blah." And I'm like, I get there, dude. Their stuff. They had an article when I was flying on the plane to Japan about how men and women over there die of heart disease and heart attacks because they use so much salt in their food, because their ramen has so much salt, the way they fry has so much salt. It's pretty funny.
Well, it's funny.
But here in the West.
Because like my mom, she's Korean. Well, my ethnicity is Korean. And it's funny because like my mom eats very healthy and stuff, but it's like, for her, she has high blood pressure and high blood pressure and high cholesterol, which is weird. You never guess looking at her, but it's just that happens, And it depends on parts of Asia. Like a lot of people that I know that are Filipino, like they'll get gout when they move to this country because the type of fats that they eat over there are different for their body and the weather. Somebody who was Filipino explained it to me, and I kind of forgot it. But over here, they develop a lot of gout. That's so funny. He's like, "Hey, fatty." Sorry, guys. No, we're not making fun of like any sort of particular. But she said the reason why a lot of Filipinos, when they move here, they get gout, or they tend to with the same diet. It's just the weather and how they cook the food and the certain types of fat or something. I think it's like I'll have to double check with her because I forgot, because I did hear it, but this was a few years back.
Yeah, and I don't know. Listen, I'm a full believer of a healthy diet is, a little bit of meat and heavy vegetables, no carbs. Do I follow that? Hell no. I'm out the army. I don't have to have a 6-pack anymore. I'm going to die with diabetes and heart disease like every red-blooded American. But there's some truth in all that. Like I remember being in the military. You know, like especially when you start getting up into like doing ranger school and stuff, they monitor what you can eat, because certain foods and certain diets, and they have you go see a dietitian and stuff. Well, at least they did with my group, to see what kind of diet is best for you for athletics and best performance. And there's like, they have it down to a science, man. Like, it's insane. But overall, the number one thing I've learned is lean meats and vegetables can't go wrong. You'll probably never get fat. Red meat at least once a week. Otherwise, you'll get become anemic, if
I kind
anything.
of developed a taste for fish, but like the thing is that I also like chicken. But the thing is that I air fry a lot of my shit, so that's kind of nice. I actually like the air fryer because it's sort of like, when you think about it, it's like oven baking, but without the bitch of checking on it. You just like stick it in there and you're like, okay, I'll deal with you later, and you go off and do other things.
That's why I like the crock pot, man. You just chop up your vegetables, put your broth, put your roast in there, and forget about it for the whole day until it's dinner time.
That's what Instapot's for too. Like, it has a slow cooker method. Oh, Hojo says,
Ranger school was a blur. I remember not sleeping, Florida, and telling them what I ate, but who had the time to eat? 100%, dude. Ranger school was insane, bro. I wish that school on no man or woman. I promise you. Getting ready, getting prepared for it was like, I understand what they were doing when we went to see all the nutritionists, all the doctors, and getting, you know, the consults and signing off on the paperwork to go. But yeah, when you get there, damn, they kick the shit out of you 100%. I remember, like, when I took my boots off after, I had skin fall off my foot because it rubbed so bad from marching and running that the boot just, yeah. Easier lasted a week, I feel like. 100%, dude. 100%.
yeah. I mean, with that type of shit, it's like, it's kind of crazy. It's like, I don't know how. It's kind of funny. Like, I want to say, first of all, I'm not a vet. I've never served, but it's kind of weird how I can relate to a lot of military guys. Like, in general, like military people I get along especially well with, and I have no idea. Maybe it's maybe it's Korean parents or something, because Korean parents are really pretty corporal. I mean, people say, "Oh, well, Indian parents are corporal." I said, "No, Korean parents are really fucking corporal. They're like, literally, they're a drill sergeant. At least my generation, my parents. Well, because my parents were raised during a wartime, so that fucking kind of makes sense."
Okay, let's see. Link drop for the Indiegogo. 9 days to go from Hojo. Check it out, guys. Look in the link. Can you pull it up real quick since they dropped it?
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can. It's kind of weird in here. I can't copy and paste in this immediate thing.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm using my phone.
It's because we get zero shits about the mundane, Kirsty. That kind of makes sense. I think so, because like lately nowadays, I don't know if it's me getting more based and all that shit. Like, half the shit. Thank you, Pops. So this is the mythicals right there.
There we go.
Yeah. So what it is that, yeah, it's like when I go on Facebook, I kind of hate a lot of shit people post on Facebook, and I kind of ignore half of it because I don't feel like I care enough. It's like, I almost want to go like, y'all like either talk too much about your own personal problems or the stupidest shit in the world, and I don't really care about either. Like, I'm okay with some personal stuff, and I'm okay with stuff that you do, but if you like always have to post everything about what the fuck you do, it's just fucking annoying, you know. Anyway, my little thing. So South River Studios, yes.
So check this out. Mythicals is got their campaign going on, folks. Please back this project, man. It is 100% beautiful artwork, beautiful ink work. The story is going to definitely, make you want to like stick in there past the 5 pages. Like, everyone always talks about the first 5 pages of a comic book is what sucks the reader in. Honestly, I'd say by page 2, you can't stop from the previews that we got to see. Chrissy, go ahead and click on the thing so that people can actually see it. I'm on my phone, so I can't really click on it.
It's kind of hard for me to do because it's like, it's kind of annoying. Like I can show the comment, but how they did it is like, I could go in the YouTube, but it's like, I have to go through all this thing. But yeah, no, if somebody could drop Pops, if you could drop a link in the private chat, we could probably control it better. I don't know.
Yeah. Because I mean, when I heard about this project, I've been wanting to share it for a while now, and the fact that
timing. Launches in 9 days. Thanks, Pops.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Check that out, man. I mean, such gorgeous artwork, and if you're a horror fan, you're definitely gonna love it, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's about an agent, like two agents, basically, and they are in a bureau of investigating supernatural occurrences, and it's like a team effort and stuff. So they're like a squad that's dealt. It's a government squad.
Do you want me to play the videos?
Yes, play the video.
The video is actually loaded in the.
Okay, let's see here.
In the brand, it's Mythical's trailer. See, sometimes we don't have to mess with the YouTube. We just play the video because.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to show them. Okay, here we go.
Let's play it. Ready? 1, 2, and.
In a world where creatures of myth and legend exist, a covert task force is charged with keeping humanity safe from supernatural threats. And when young Nancy Moon stumbles into the eternal battle between good and evil, she finds... Oh my God, will you shut up? What's happening? Agent Beckett here. Aren't you tired of stuff like that? Want something different? Roll the tape. Whoops. Sorry about that. That's a song I'm writing for my ex. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that's more like it. Alrighty. Welcome to the world of the mythicals. We have it all. Monsters. Magic. Government agents. He's the strong silent type. This guy. Ugh, gross, dude. Get some kind of cream or something. Lots of 90s style action. Pew pew pew. And that strong female lead alluded to earlier. Not to mention a dashing field commander with a great sense of fashion. Look at those glasses. South River Studios presents The Mythicals, Issue 1. Buy it, if you dare. Ugh, will you can it already? How'd you get free? Now beat it before I lose my cool. So what are you waiting for? Sign up today. Like right now.
Sign up today on Indiegogo.
Boom.
There you go,
folks.
Peter. Long information. Hey Q, how's it going? Yeah, it's very impressive animation. So yeah, just go ahead and go over there, pick it up today. Unfortunately, I can't scroll. Pops is having to scroll for us. So excuse me, I'm burping. But yeah, so check it out. The link is in the comments. Check it out. Take a look. It looks like a really fucking cool premise and a really cool fucking book.
Yeah. And hey, if you guys got any projects that are, Kickstarter or whatever, by all means, we're all friends here. Drop them the thing, and we will definitely promote it as we are doing the show. Because again, this show is about talking about positivity in comics, and just letting people know what content's out there. Because unfortunately, since a lot of comic book shops have closed recently, having those really cool conversations about new books that are out there that no one's, talking about, like get thrown by the wayside, you know? So that's why we created this show. We want to talk about comics. We want to, let people know, like, dude, check these, products out. Let's, hopefully you'll have fun with it as much as we did. Anywho, oh, you're welcome, Hojo. 100%, dude. 100%. All right, folks. Today we're gonna cut this a little bit short because I'm going to have another update over here. The electric company's coming in, I can see, and I don't want to, leave y'all hanging. So, thank you all for logging in. Please join me and Christy for her draw stream. What are you drawing today, by the way, man?
I don't know. I'm drawing some shit. You know how that is. I'm also right now pouring up the lunch hour at this moment. So I'm going to do that real quick as I go on. So I'll see you guys in a minute. While you sign off, I'm going to go into my own thing.
All right.
Okay. All right. Let me just go in here.